A stock cooler, air cooler, all-in-ones or AIO, and a CCAS looking custom water cooler. Which one should you choose? Hey guys, RDD2 here, and in this video, I'll be talking about things you need to consider in terms of a CPU cooler's aesthetics, noise, cost, and performance before choosing your own, and answer the question if you need an aftermarket CPU cooler. Just a note, I won't be including actual results, but mostly will focus on general information. Firstly, which one do you want to choose in terms of the aesthetics and noise level and relevance to their cost? Even if you don't need the additional cooling or it barely does any improvements to your CPU's cooling performance, an aftermarket stock cooler can help you with your problem if you think that your stock cooler is too loud or the look doesn't fit your taste. But if these factors don't bother you at all, then it might be better if you stick with your stock cooler, and it can even save you some money. However, if you include how much you're willing to spend for an aftermarket cooler, then that's going to be another story. If you have all the money in the world or your budget doesn't have a limit, then you're most likely going to choose an expensive all-in-one cooler or a custom water cooler, but most of us don't have the budget or the luxury to splurge our beloved savings and hard-earned cash, and mostly going to stick to a limited budget and probably will choose a cheap or decent air or AIO cooler. Air coolers are typically seen as the budget-friendly option, but even some of them are more expensive than some AIO. When it comes to air coolers, size does matter. Well, at least it does on this topic, so if you're into huge things, then this can be your choice. The reason being is because the larger the heat sinks, the more it can transfer heat away from your CPU. For some people who like their rig to look less overcrowded, then choosing an air cooler would have you to trade off the aesthetics and make the inside of your case look more cramped by having a large block of aluminum and copper heatsinks, which is what they are usually made out of. But there's a certain point on the size where you'll see no improvement in cooling your CPU, and you're left with a chunk of aluminum and copper that have no purpose beside being an eyesore. Also, don't forget that there can be compatibility issues of your air cooler size with other components on your PC, such as the RAM and your PC case. So make sure your cooler has the right dimension to fit inside your rig properly. This tip also applies to your other type of coolers, so make sure you take measurements and know what type of form factor is compatible with your CPU cooler before buying them. In terms of its noise level, you can also add additional fans and attach it to your heatsink. Its purpose is to blow or suck hot air away from the heatsink. Most of the noise can come from your fan, and sometimes it's possible to attach more than one to the heatsink, so adding more fans potentially means adding more noise. It really depends on what the fan is made out of if it can run quietly. Also, you can change the fans that came with the heatsink to a much quieter ones, but make sure it's compatible. On the other hand, with AIO coolers, they have a simple and sleek design. Aesthetically, in my opinion, comparing it to an air cooler, the AIO can make the inside of your case look less cramped and a cleaner look due to it only needs a water block to be in contact with the CPU, while the radiator, which is often placed on top or front of the case, is often less visible on most cases due to it got its own allocated location, which is separated from the main components such as your motherboard, graphics card, and your CPU. Like the custom water cooler, an AIO uses a radiator with fans attached to it, and it can allow you to have fewer fans in your case compared to your typical heatsink with an additional single or double fans. However, there's a lot of things involved when it comes down to custom water coolers. For starters, you'll need to spend tons of money, and sometimes can even cost up to thousands of dollars on just the cooler itself, and you still need to include the maintenance cost. Comparing it to AIO, AIO is a cheaper alternative if you want your CPU to be water cooled, as some of the items that are needed to be purchased for a custom water cooler include a water block, a reservoir, pump, radiator, fans, fittings, and tubing. However, it's aesthetically pleasing when done right. The amount of freedom you have to customize your cooler can be endless, whether it will be the orientation of the tubes or the color of the water can be altered to match your preference. Now, when it comes to its noise or acoustic level for AIO and custom water coolers, other parts of these coolers like the pump or even the liquid itself can generate enough audible sounds depending on their design. Mostly they are considered to be quieter than air coolers, but again, most of the loudness of your cooler really depends on how many fans you're going to attach to your radiator and their noise level. Last but not the least, the performance. If you're one of those people who think that a better cooler makes your rig go faster, then you are wrong. Even though it helps to make your CPU last longer, simply what it does is it keeps the performance of your CPU stable by not allowing it to overheat. Moreover, CPU manufacturers intended to let their CPUs to operate at a certain temperature, and if you use them with the settings or configuration that they came out with and you're not planning to do some overclocking, then the added stock cooler, if included one, should be just fine to do its job. Sure, in theory, aftermarket coolers can make your CPU last longer, and in some cases can even make your CPU last for a number of years or decades. Also, you can still make your CPU last longer using a stock cooler if you just let it run constantly in its normal temperature and don't let it go above its temperature limits by not letting it run highly CPU intensive applications. Air cooler's performance, like what I stated a while ago, it will have to rely on the heatsink's capability to dissipate hot air from it. Basically, the larger the heatsink, the better. But also, the design plays a factor in its performance. However, when it comes to performance, would it be worth the try to get yourself an AIO or custom water cooler? Surely for aesthetics, it is one of the best, but how about its performance or its capability to cool your CPU? The radiator comes in different sizes, and like a heatsink, the bigger the better. Also, you can attach more fans to improve cooling performance. But the difference between the performance of these two water coolers probably won't really matter, as I don't believe that the custom water cooler can outperform AIO in terms of its cooling performance, and both options will most likely get your chip well within a safe temperature range. Moving on, when it comes to some of these coolers' pros and cons, one of the top reasons why most people avoid custom water cooling is because of the potential risk of leakage inside your case, and in worst case scenario, the liquid can spread to other important parts of your rig, which can result to more cost to repair it or permanent damage that will lead you to get a replacement. That's where air cooler has an advantage. It doesn't have the risk of leakage, unlike AIO and custom water coolers. With AIO, they are ideal for people who don't want to bother with assembling numerous parts while at the same time providing excellent cooling performance. All the required components are pre-assembled and it won't be necessary for you to change the water, unlike a custom water cooler. Also, there's less risk and chances of it leaking compared to a custom water cooler. However, custom water cooler can be worth when you have multiple water blocks in a loop to cut costs to cool your GPU and CPU. Overall, it really depends on your taste and your budget, whether you want to run your whole rig quieter, aesthetically look pleasing, or just to have a decent performing PC. Anyways guys, I hope this guide helped you, and if you enjoyed this tech vid, make sure to share, subscribe, and give me a thumbs up, as it would mean so much to me. Anyways, I hope I'll see you on my next tech video.